Good morning friends, welcome back to Parnika tutorials. In the last few videos, I have discussed various process synchronization mechanisms such as lock variable, test and set instruction, then turn variable. I hope you have watched those videos. If you did not watch those videos or if you don't know those concepts, I request you to go back and watch those videos and come back to this video. In this video, I want to discuss one more process synchronization mechanism which is a interest variable. So I request everyone to watch the complete video for better understanding. First, let me discuss the working process of interest variable, then I will discuss its limitations. Look at the few important points related to the interest variable. It is a software mechanism and we have two modes. One is the user mode and another one is kernel mode. If any process synchronization mechanism works in the user mode, then meaning is that it does not take any support from the operating system. If it works in the kernel mode, it takes the support from the operating system. Now look at this one. Interest variable runs in a user mode. It does not take any support from the operating system. And the process synchronization mechanisms are broadly classified into two categories. One is busy waiting solution and another one is non-busy waiting solution. I have discussed clearly about the busy waiting schedule and the non-busy waiting mechanism in the lock variable video. If you don't know what is a busy waiting and what is a non-busy waiting, I request you to please refer that video. Now, interest variable comes in the category called busy waiting and it works for only two processes. Now, let me discuss the working process of the interest variable. Now, we will have a variable called interest, which is a one-dimensional array, consists of two indices. One is 0 and another one is 1. Is it clear? If interest of 0 is equal to true, then meaning is that process P0 wants to enter into the critical session. If interest of 1 is equal to true, then meaning is that process P1 is interested to enter into the critical session. I hope you are able to understand. Interest of 0 either can be true or false. If it is true, process P0 wants to enter into the critical session. If it is false, process P0 does not want to enter into the critical session. Initially, interest of 0 and 1 will be false, meaning is that none of the process is ready to enter into the critical session. Now, let me discuss the working process by keeping the interest of 0 is equal to true and interest of 1 is equal to false, meaning is that process P0 wants to enter into the critical session and process P1 does not want to enter into the critical session. Now look at here. We have a critical session. Now interest of 0 is equal to true. We know that any process synchronization mechanism will have the entry session then exit session. Now look at the entry session of the process P0. Interest of is equal to 0. Yes, interest of 0 is equal to true. Am I right? Means it is showing interest to enter into the critical session. Now while interest of 1 is equal to true, interest of 1 is equal to false. So false is equal to true. Condition is false. Am I right or wrong? Because true is equal to true but false not equal to true, but it is saying false is equal to true. The condition is failed. If the condition is failed, then it will enter into the critical session. Now process P0 entered into the critical session. Now let's take that when the process P0 is there in the critical session, now process P1 wants to enter into the critical session. If process P1 wants to enter into the critical session, it has to execute the entry session. Now interest of 1 is equal to true. So it is showing its interest to enter into the critical session. Now look at here. While interest of 0 is equal to true. Yes, process P0 is there in the critical session and its interest of 0 is equal to true. So true is equal to true. Meaning is that the condition is true. If the condition is true, will it enter into the critical session? No. Again, it will check the condition. So process P1 is not allowed to enter into the critical session. So I can say that mutual exclusion is provided in this scenario. We'll discuss all the scenarios. Okay. In one scenario, when process P0 is there in the critical session, This interest variable concept is not allowing the another process to enter into the critical session. What is a mutual exclusion? At max, only one process can be there in the critical session. Now look at here. Process P1 completed its critical session part and it executed the exit session. Now interest of 0 is equal to false. Now this one became false, meaning is that process P0 is not ready to enter into the critical session. Now critical session is empty. Now process P1 is busy waiting because it is keep on waiting when the process P0 will leave the critical session. That's why we said that it is a busy waiting. When other process is there in the critical session, if another process is want to go into the critical session, it will keep on check whether the critical session is occupied or vacant. So that's why it is called as busy waiting solution. Now interest of 0 is equal to true. This is the condition. Interest of 0 is equal to false because when it leaves the critical session, it has kept the interest of its 0 is equal to false, meaning is the process P0 is not ready to enter into the critical session. So false is equal to true. The condition is false. If this condition is false, process P1 will enter into the critical session. Okay, is it clear? Now we will see when process P1 is there in the critical session, if process P0 wants to enter into the critical session, will it allow or not? Is it clear? Now look at here. Interest of 0 is equal to true, meaning is that process P0 wants to enter into the critical session, while interest of 1 is equal to true. Yes, interest of 1 is equal to true. That's why it is in the critical session. If it leaves the critical session and execute the exit session, then only it will make its own interest as false. But interest of 1 is currently true. True is equal to true. Yes, the condition is true. If the condition is true, it will be there in the infinite loop. It will keep on checking the condition. So when the process P1 is there in the critical session, it is not allowing the other process to enter into the critical session. So I can say that interest variable process synchronization mechanism is achieving the mutual exclusion, which is one of the primary requirement of any process synchronization mechanism. Now we will discuss the another scenario. Okay, before discussing whether it is achieving the progress or not, I want to discuss few points. Now interest of 0 and interest of 1, let me keep it as in shortcut int. Don't think that it is an integer variable. Okay, interest of 0 is true and interest of 1 is also true. Then another one is true, false. Okay, then false, true, then false and false. These are the 4 scenarios we will face. Am I right or wrong? Now interest of 0 is equal to true, interest of 1 is equal to true, meaning that both the process wants to enter into the critical session. Then which process will enter into the critical session? It depends. It can be either process P0 or process P1. Which one has completed this step first will go to the critical session. Look at here. Interest of 0 is equal to true because initially both the values are false. After executing this one, if interest of 1 is true, then process P0 will successfully enter into the critical session. So if both the process has kept true, it depends which one will enter into the critical session. It can be either process P0 or process P1. Is it clear? If interest of 0 is equal to true and interest of 1 is equal to false, meaning is that P0 is showing its interest to enter into the critical session and P1 is not ready, then who will enter into the critical session? Process P0. Similarly here, process P1 will enter into the critical session. In this scenario, both the process is not ready to enter into the critical session. No one will be there in the critical session. Critical session is vacant. Is it clear? So this is the few important points I want to highlight. Now let me discuss, can we achieve the progress or not? Is it clear? Look at here. Can we achieve one more important parameter, which is a progress? Okay, now let's take this. Process P0 interest is equal to false. Meaning is that process P0 is not ready to enter into the critical session. However, process P1 kept its interest as true, meaning is that process P1 is ready to enter into the critical session. Now interest of 1 is equal to true. That is meaning is that process P1 is want to enter into the critical session, while interest of 0 is false. False is equal to true. This condition is false. If this condition is false, process P1 will enter into the critical session. Okay, we have a critical session and process P1 is there in the critical session. Meaning is that when process P0 does not want to enter into the critical session and process P1 wants to enter into the critical session, it is allowing. So what is meant by progress? If two process solution, if one process does not want to enter into the critical session, it should allow another process to enter into the critical session. Am I right or wrong? It is not like that I does not have any interest to study operating system. I should not force my friend not to study the operating system. Am I right or wrong? If I am not interested to study the operating system, let my friend to study. Is it clear? If he is also not interested, then no problem. Am I right or wrong? So when P0 does not want to enter into the critical session, when P1 wants to enter into the critical session, it is allowing. Let's take another scenario. Is it clear? Let's consider that process P1 wants to enter into the critical session. It has kept the interest of 0 is equal to true. Same one I have discussed. Process P0 wants to enter into the critical session. Process P1 does not want to enter into the critical session. Is it clear? Are you able to understand? Now, interest of 0 is true. Am I right? Process P0 wants to enter into the critical session, while interest of 1 is false. False is equal to true. This condition is false. If this condition is false, process P0 can successfully enter into the critical session. Meaning is that when P1 does not want to enter into the critical session, P0 wants to enter into the critical session, it is allowing. So progress is achieved. Is it clear? These are the two primary requirements of any process synchronization mechanism, such as mutual exclusion and progress. Now we will discuss the secondary requirements of any process synchronization mechanism. One is bounded weight and another one is architecture neutrality or portability. Is it clear? Now look at the bounded weight. Bounded weight is that when process P0 has completed its task and process P1 is waiting, it should allow, am I right or wrong, after some amount of time. It should not make the process P1 to wait for long time. Am I right? It should not allow the process P1 to be in the starvation or in the deadlock. Am I right or wrong? Look at here. Okay. Now, process P0 wants to enter into the critical session. Is it clear? Okay. And process P1 was not ready to enter into the critical session. Is it clear? Meaning is that interest of 0 is equal to true and interest of 1 is equal to false. In this situation, who will enter into the critical session? Process P0 will enter into the critical session. And then process P0 was preempted. When the process P0 is there in the critical session, process P0 was preempted, then process P1 has been scheduled. Is it clear? If process P1 is scheduled and it is want to enter into the critical session, now what it will do? Interest of 1 is equal to true. And it trying to enter into the critical session. What it will do? It will check this condition, while interest of 0 will be true because process P0 is still there in the critical session. So interest of 0 is equal to true. True is equal to true. The condition is true. If the condition is true, process P0 is in the busy waiting. Am I right? It is keep on waiting. Are you able to understand? It is keep on executing this while loop. Am I right or wrong? Or I can say that it is just executing the while condition. Okay. Now, process P0 is not allowed to enter into the critical session. Now, let's take that process P0. Okay. Process P0 has left the critical session. Okay. Process P0 has left the critical session. Okay. Means it was again preempted, meaning is it was again scheduled. Sorry. Once P1 is preempted, process P0 is scheduled. Now it has completed the critical session and it has executed the exit session. So what it will do? It will keep the interest of 0 is equal to false. Immediately, it is again want to enter into the critical session. Am I right? It has completed the exit session, again there is a critical session. So again it wants to enter into the critical session. Am I right or wrong? The situation like this, process P naught has non-critical session, critical session, critical session. It can be there. Am I right? Once it has completed critical session, immediately it want to enter into the critical session. So what it will do? Interest of 0 is equal to true. Am I right? Now it wants to enter into the critical session. Then this condition should be false. Interest of 1 is equal to true. Interest of 1. Process P1 also interested to enter into the critical session. So this value will be true. True is equal to true. So this condition is true. If this condition is true, process P naught again will execute the while statement. So again it is also executing the while loop, means it is there in the busy wait. It is not entered into the critical session. Now it was preempted. Process P1 is been scheduled. Okay, now what it will do? Interest of 1 is equal to true and interest of 0 is equal to true. Both the process want to enter into the critical session. Now while interest of 0 is equal to true, true is equal to true, this condition is true. If this condition is true, again process P1 will keep on executing the busy wait while loop. Am I right? Again it was preempted. Process P naught has been scheduled. Am I right or wrong? Process P naught has been scheduled. Again it will check this condition. While interest of 1. Again process P1 is interested. So true is equal to true. Again the condition is true. It will be again executing the while loop. Now none of the process P naught, P1 are waiting for the other to leave. No one is there in the critical session. No one is utilizing the common resource and both the process are there in the waiting. Then this situation what we will call is a deadlock. Am I right or wrong? So interest variable sometimes will leads to the deadlock. So if there is a deadlock, bounded waiting is not achieved at all. Am I right or wrong? So this is the limitation with the interest variable. There is a deadlock. Okay, now architectural neutrality, as it is a software mechanism, this solution can be implemented in any operating system. So architecture neutrality has been achieved. So mutual exclusion, progress and architectural neutrality has been achieved. However, deadlock is there in the interest variable. I hope you have understood the limitation and working process of interest variable process synchronization mechanism. If you still have any doubts related to this concept, feel free to ask me in the comment section. I will try to clear your doubts as early as possible. Thank you for watching the complete video. Have a nice day.